Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Let's do that.
Oh,
Excellent.
happy to tell our stories.
Yeah, no, it was fascinating. So
The story this morning was long.
Samling lite papper.
Alrighty. So I think as kind of a co-organizer, I'm not allowed here to have like a favorite guest. But if you would actually kind of push me to pick one, I'm incredibly excited about Olivier being here. We met for the first time in 2003, 2004 actually, in Paris. When we started organizing this forum, I called up Olivier and said, like, hey, could you imagine joining for this today? And he made time. He's incredibly busy. He's an entrepreneur. He's currently raising funds. I would like to start us off with this video. Every time I have a hard time kind of keeping myself going, refining these slides kind of from my entrepreneurship class. This is the video I watched. So a ton of the views you see on this YouTube video is actually from my home computer. So I would like to experience you this before we then actually kind of go into the discussion with Olivier.
Hey, Mom!
Do we have sound? Sound would be very important.
Is everything okay?
Yeah, so happy to be calling you. How is Dad?
Louder? We need to get
He's doing great. But honey,
Oh, yeah.
you hear me well on the phone?
Hey, Mom!
Yes. Is that you? Is everything okay?
Yeah, so happy to be calling you. How is Dad?
He's doing great. But honey, you hear me well on the phone?
I read you perfectly.
Hi, I'm Olivier. I'm the founder of RogerVoice. I'm deaf. I have over 80% hearing loss, and I'm not the only one. There are millions of people worldwide like me.
To communicate, hard of hearing people use lip reading or a sign. But you can't do that over a phone. Important moments happen around a phone call. But for hard of hearing people, such experiences can be frustrating or even impossible. That's exactly why we created RogerVoice, the first worldwide phone app for deaf people. RogerVoice automatically transcribes into text any phone conversation.
We've been working on the technology and the design for over a year now, testing and getting feedback from many of you.
The technology is finally here to make this happen.
Hi, I'm Sydney, the CTO. When Olivier first told me about his idea, at first I thought, that's impossible. There's no way it could be done. Well, it's incredible, but we've done it. RogerVoice transcribes your phone calls into text in real time.
We want to make calls accessible and simple. And because we don't rely on human intermediaries, your calls are private and confidential. And it's not just for hard of hearing people. Who knows where this technology will lead?
I've received messages of support worldwide. Now you need to make it happen.
And all of this started with a simple wish. Make millions of people smile, laugh, and connect again, or for the very first time, in front of a phone.
Make a contribution count. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming Olivier. I'll ask you for standing ovations because in this case, it's like get up. All right, Olivier, this is yours. So there's one thing which is going to be a little bit different today, or this time. We're starting off, basically, I'm asking a few questions, and then I give it to the audience. I'm then going to repeat the questions you ask for Olivier. This also, he can read my lips. So if I think your question is particularly stupid, I can actually change that a little bit, okay? So if you get a different answer than the question you asked for, that's probably my, that actually goes to my credit. So Olivier, one of the things I found most fascinating about it, what you told me about it, is that it's not actually enough to just kind of came up with the technology. So even once the technology was in place, you still had kind of some work to do. Can you describe a little bit what you had to do beyond that?
Yes. So hello everybody. So basically the project came about because in 2011, when everybody discovered Siri, Steve Jobs announced this, and people were like, "This guy had gone batshit crazy. This stuff is a gadget. It doesn't work. Siri doesn't work." The usage rate was very low. But for me, it meant something else besides just being a gadget. It was actually the first time I realized that voice recognition was actually something scalable, in the sense that everybody has a smartphone today, and you can basically harness something that's intangible, voice, something tangible. And it's funny because that's exactly what deaf people need. The sense that if you talk to Siri, you need to articulate clearly in a calm environment, and the transcription will be perfect. It's kind of the same way you talk with a deaf person. So my experience with Siri was great because every time I asked somebody to caption something on Siri and say something, I was like, "Wait, can you just talk to it like you're talking to a deaf person?" And the results were much better than the average population. And so it's interesting for me to understand that this technology that most people thought was a gadget was something very important for me. So voice recognition is not new. It's very old technology, actually. But for me, it meant something else. Putting it together with voice over IP, like Skype. And it's the same thing. Skype is groundbreaking. But it's even more so if I add it to voice recognition. That's where I clicked a bit. So it's more than, you can be an entrepreneur just by taking a lot of different elements from the ecosystem. It doesn't cost you anything. There's open source voice recognition from Google. We hacked the system. We started using Skype, then we changed it. We used something else. We use open platforms for telecoms. It costs us nothing. So you can do a lot as an entrepreneur. Just test your idea and try it out. So that's what the video came about. We had something there, then needed the money to build something much better.
The moment somebody who is hearing impaired actually has that technology, do they immediately start using it, or do you need to convince them a little bit?
It was tough. There's a lot of people who, when they start using the phone, they're like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I can phone now. I feel free, liberated," you know. And then they realize actually you can do a lot of stuff without a phone. And so it's sort of like this psychological barrier that comes down. People are like, "Wait, I only want the phone just in case I had to call somebody, but I prefer doing SMS or email." And so actually, it's funny because it took me over 1 year to start actually using my own app. And so when you talk about, it's funny because when you talk about disruption, that's maybe not the thing you want to do when you're launching a new technology. You don't want disruption. You want something that goes into people's lives easily. And so it's really tough to propose a new way to communicate that's never been done before. So there's a lot of work to do, not just technology. It's also about helping people adopt that new technology.
So we've now seen the video, as we know from many Kickstarter videos. These really just exist on Kickstarter. This technology, is this out there? Are people using this? Can you give us a feeling for how many people are using this? Or?
Oh, there's a lot of people using it today, actually. So we launched this on Android and iPhone in November, 6 months ago, 5, 6, 7, 8 months ago. And actually, we have over 1,450 people that use it per month, and I'm really stoked because that means there are actually people who are having new conversations that they're, like Henning told me the other day, it's like this wouldn't have been happening. These conversations wouldn't be happening without that app, and it's a nice way to think about that.
So let me. I feel this is an incredibly important point, and I would like to repeat this for a second. There are 1,450 conversations happening every month because of this app, which would not happen otherwise. These are daughters, sons calling their grandparents, calling their parents, calling a friend. So these are all conversations which are suddenly taking place, which would not take place otherwise. I do not know. You say I cannot put a money value on it. I do not want to put a money value on it, right? But it feels like, as I say, it feels so incredibly rich to me to have 1,450 conversations every month with an increasing rate, right?
Yes.
Which are taking place because of RogerVoice, which would not take place otherwise. So for us, this is like a number, but each of these conversations is an enormous amount of joy, right, for each of the two individuals involved, right? So this makes kind of for those who have not been very good on the GMAT, this is almost 3,000 people who are involved because these are two persons on a phone call, right? Yeah, I need to give a little bit of time for these kind of jokes. So one thing, there's one thing, Olivier. So we're talking about different parts of the world today. We had Randy Commissar from Silicon Valley. We're talking about all kinds of different ecosystem. Randy is from Silicon Valley. He pointed out that Scandinavia is kind of a hub for entrepreneurship. China is a hub. You actually founded this in France. And France is not classically something we're thinking of as a hub of entrepreneurship. And I would love to understand how your experience was. How did you like it? How did you benefit from the environment? If you could share that a little bit with us.
So it's funny because I tend to blame it on the ecosystem, but actually, you know what? France is a great place to start up because basically there's so much money everywhere you look at. Basically, if you quit a job, you have 2 years of unemployment benefits. Seriously, that's a lot of money. Well, basically, it's the recipe to start up in France is very easy. You quit a job, you have 2 years of unemployment benefits to start working on a project and convince. This gives you a 2-year timeline basically to prove that your product works. Quite frankly, if you can't make it in 2 years, you've got an execution problem and you've got a product market fit problem, whatever it is. You can go back to getting a job again. And people tend to value that experience actually if you start out on a startup. It's kind of like getting an MBA basically. I actually had a choice between doing an MBA or launching a startup, and I was like, well, let me try launching a startup. And it's funny, in France, people tend to blame like, people don't invest and stuff like this. Well, yes and no. I mean, basically, if you have like traction that goes up and customers buying stuff, there's no investor that's going to say no. I mean, it's purely mathematical. Like, they can see that it's taking off. What is interesting also in France is...
Don't say it's mathematical. It doesn't go well with the script. Say something different.
Good. It's funny because a lot of people ask me why am I not in California, because that's where I grew up. I could be doing this over there. And as a matter of fact, there's a startup that's doing a similar product, but it's more for like group conversations among deaf people, deaf and hearing people. And they raised $2 million. They did a Kickstarter campaign, Indiegogo campaign, a month after me. And like 6 months later, they raised $2 million. They had no product. They had no prototype. They hadn't launched anything, no proof, nothing. But they got $2 million. So I guess you can say it's easier in America to get funding, just based on like storytelling and convincing people. But is it the right approach? I don't know. In France, you can certainly do a Kickstarter yourself. You can get money to just live off on your own wages and start your own product. And if you can't get it out there, out of the gate, there's something else going on. Money doesn't solve the equation of whatever your product is trying to solve on the market. It's not going to be improved if there's that much more money. In fact, it may even distract you. Like, okay, let's just pour on money into that thing. But are you actually listening to your customers? I like that approach actually. It's kind of like what they call lean entrepreneurship, yeah. So France is a great place to do this.
So as you pointed out, you also raised money via crowdfunding, and it would be great if you could share a little bit kind of your experience on that. How did that go, and how did people respond? You've all just seen the video from that very Kickstarter campaign.
So how did I start up on there?
What was your experience? Was this successful? How much work was it? If you could lead us a little bit through the process.
So nothing happened like I expected to. I started with a founder. We were 50-50, but he never committed fully to this. I quit my job and I went on my project. And then you had to negotiate over like, okay, how do I get my shares back? Do I pay him? But no, he wants to stay. And so there's all these stories, and it's part of the learning process, I guess. And you can also like have a lot of problems with technology. You're trying to get technology at the cheapest possible cost. There's always people trying to sell you. Like people are telling you, oh, voice recognition is going to cost you this much. Or you just can't, you need to be very resourceful, very smart. And I think the fact that you're doing it in a very difficult ecosystem, like let's say in Europe, you have so many languages to handle. So if I want to make an app that works in voice recognition in French, I've got like 65 million people market. But if you're doing it in English, you've got like 350 million Americans, 45,000 English people. But again, it's also an advantage to doing it in Europe because you're immediately thinking about international stuff. So my app got translated in like 4 languages even before I released it, which makes it so much more versatile globally. I like that advantage actually. And also, there's so many engineers in France that are really, really smart, and they do give you some of their time. You just follow up and like INRIA, CNRS, and all these laboratories are brilliant engineers. They don't know how to get out there. They don't know how to market the stuff. But if you go meet them and you explain what they're doing, they're like, oh, we love what you're doing, stuff like this. And they'll give you some of the time and expertise. And quite frankly, I would I'm trying to raise funds right now. And we're closing next week, actually. It's pretty successful. I'm going back to those engineers. I'm going to be like, look, I want to hire you guys. These people are like half price of what you would find in America. And they're really, really brilliant at what they do. And the idea is to get them out of the lab and like push some products on the market. This is very interesting. France has like so many good talents inside.
So Olivier, one of the things I like most about this story is how you basically take every barrier you encounter, and you encounter so many barriers, and you see that as an opportunity. You see, be it kind of your own hearing impairedness, be it where people say like, oh, in France there's no funding, and you would say like, oh, this is great, where you would say the population is not big enough, and you say, oh no, this is great because it makes me think international. Can you kind of, what is the secret sauce? How did you learn to see all these barriers basically as an opportunity, as something to overcome? Is there something in your education, in your childhood? What is it?
I guess growing up with a hearing loss make me have to look at this in life. I mean, the fact that I have to ask somebody to appear and be clear, I make sure that people don't say bullshit. So it's a good way of looking at hearing loss. Sometimes if you're trying to make sure that you're communicating properly to people. When I was working at Orange, before I quit my job, I was working at Orange for 8 years. We had meetings. I was in charge of organizing the meetings, which is weird because I'm deaf and I can't really follow what everybody's saying. But that's the whole point, actually. My managers liked the fact that I was like, wait, we've been talking for 15 minutes. What are you guys talking about? Can we go back to the point? And so it would, like, people would just get like, you know, the meeting would get on time because I was just cutting it through. It was interesting. Please hire deaf people if you want to organize meetings. They're great. And there's also like, just basically, I love the fact that France is a nation of people who pride themselves on being le sens critique, you know, and like they love to complain and, you know, gripe and stuff like this. And actually, I found that very funny, and I actually enjoy that temperament. But it's my necessary reaction to that is like, seriously, come on. You guys have like 5, maybe 9 weeks of vacation. You've got such good food. What's wrong with you people? Why are we complaining? This is great. You know, it's a great country to be living in. I don't want to go back to California. Why would I work for 2 weeks vacation per year? What's the point? I think you have to look at it that way to really enjoy. Doing a startup in France is also, you have to think that way because seriously, there's money to be had. I participated in a contest at BPI France. You guys are loaded with money. You can get a loan, you can get a subvention. It's like, they're like, do you have a startup? Can we help you? Do you have money? It's amazing. It's amazing. You have to do like administrative paperwork that's like thick. But it's been going down actually. The size of the paperwork has been going down. And so it's easier and easier. And there's literally a lot of business angels as well who are looking for startups. You know, they're like, we want to invest. So I don't like the fact that many of them invest for tax reasons. Most of the investment is done to get kickbacks on your wealth tax, which is in America they don't really do that. They do that because they think they're going to make money. They think you're the next Steve Jobs. But in France, they just want to put money safely somewhere. So a startup is not a very good option. It's kind of risky. And they don't like the fact that I tell them, you have to invest in failure. And they're like, wait, that's scary. I don't want to do that. I'm like, look, you have to invest in failure because if you don't, you're not going to encourage more startups to come up and more people to initiate things, because you can't initiate things if you don't believe that failure is okay. You know, I'm not saying I'm going to fail. I was like, wait, I'm not saying I'm going to fail, but it's like you have to accept that there's risk. You have to push that. You have to help the entrepreneur get through. So I like playing around with these stereotypes that people have, and I like pushing some people out of their comfort zone. It's kind of fun. I like that.
You're very good at that. So
yeah. When I quit France Telecom, my manager was like, have you talked about this to your parents? I'm like, wait. I was 32 years old. I'm like, wait, no. And then she's like, are you sure you don't want a sabbatical? Like, 1 year, you can come back to the company if it doesn't work. I'm like, wait, no, what's the point? If you know that there's a safety net, you're not going to be focused mentally on making sure startups survive, because then it becomes sort of an easy game, play around for a project and just go back to the company if it fails. No. Quit, get the money from the government and chômage and go for a spin.
I would love to open it up. There must be tons of questions. Yeah, Michael, do we have I'll bring this to you. Okay, why don't you just say no?
First of all, thank you for being here. Did you hear about MIT students who got the technology that converts language sign into speech and text? And if so, do you think that you could integrate with your amazing technology?
So Michael is how I kind of made myself look so nicely today. No, he's asking how, if you've heard about MIT students who have come up with a new technology, basically to translate speech into signs and text, basically. So there are multiple kind of technologies.
Sign.
Oh, from sign and text?
Gesture recognition, yes. Yes. Beautiful project. Is it called Motion Savvy Uni? Yes. I think it's that one. I've seen a couple of initiatives like this. I just wrote about that actually in a blog that I released last week. So yes, it's really, really impressive. It's still a bit far down the road because sign language is very badly expressive. Like if you say, yesterday, or you say, the day before yesterday, or a while ago, and then there's also a lot of expression like if you puff your cheeks, or and so if you do the alphabet, if you be A, B, C, and everything, yeah, that's easy to do. There's a lot of progress. But I like that actually because the whole notion of gesture recognition had been around for 2 centuries actually. The first sign gloves were gloves that people put on and they had like letters on the gloves. And deaf people would point to the letters on the gloves to spell out what they were trying to say, because a lot couldn't speak, and so they was pointing out. That was like 2 centuries ago, and it's funny because today we're using like Microsoft Connect or stuff like this, or like.
Hello, thank you very much for your presentation, and I heard about RogerVoice on the radio. Actually, I found it's an amazing tool, so thank you. I'm an entrepreneur myself, and I started a company 3 years ago. I work with large companies today, and I was thinking, why not incorporate your application on my site? Because typically in large corporations, there are people who would like to communicate this way, and so I was wondering, do we just like link to your application and purchase per month? Is that how it works?
Yes.
Typically?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your model. Basically, you expect people to just integrate your application on another site that works. You can do that.
Yes, people can write, and are you asking like people can write, and it translates into voice? No?
Right. Well, because there are in large corporations, I'm sure there are quite a few people that have hearing issues,
yeah.
And I was thinking right now I'm basically matching. It's a mentoring site, and what I do is I match people in organizations so they can develop their competencies. And I was thinking we need to do something for people who can't communicate via Skype, typically.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of using your application. And the question is that an area that you're thinking of developing? And maybe my question is not very clear, but
we can develop multiple users actually for the application, and actually we're going to release a browser version with the video integrated, which will look a bit like Skype, but with subtitles. Did I answer that question? No, I didn't.
I'll check in your site.
Okay.
So in general, if you want to fund the company or if you have any other questions for the collaborations, you can always kind of send me an email. I'll forward it to you. I'm sure you're happy to receive those emails as well. Other additional
Absolutely.
questions?
Write to me.
Further questions? Oh, thank you, Henrik.
There's a legal interesting point to it. That way I can document telephone conversations without registering, because I get a written document of what has been spoken. Is that legal, or can this be used?
Yes, absolutely. But we're kind of like erasing the whole notion of like writing and reading. It's like, right.
So he is particularly curious if this is, if there's a legal dimension to it, if it could be against the law to kind of immediately transcribe the conversation. And document. I'm not sure if it's documented. So if this is kind of in line with the legal environment to transcribe it automatically and to document it. Have you checked kind of the legal implications of it?
Yes, we have. So basically, do you know when you go into a store and there's a lot of sign that says, smile, you're being filmed. Nobody looks at these little things anymore. And basically, you're walking around the campus and you're being filmed all the time, probably without your permission. But the fact that you're actually walking onto campus and there was tiny little signs on the other side you're being filmed, but you didn't really notice. So it's kind of like this, we're in the same situation. When you pick up the call, if I call you and you pick up the call, you hear a little announcement that says, this call is being transcribed. You can continue the conversation or you can hang up. Actually, we don't store on our servers any of the transcriptions. They only store on your service. So actually, the FCC, the US government, contacted us a while ago, and because they love our app, because in America they have a relay system using humans. Like if I want to call you, we're going to call someone else actually, and they're going to relay for us and then write or sign. And this system costs us $1 billion per year for Americans. And so when they saw my app, they're like, oh, this is very interesting. It's probably cheaper too. So they contact me and they're testing it out. We signed a contract. And then they're like, we want to test the quality. Can you send us all the transcripts of all the conversations we've had over the past month, and we're just going to compare. So I asked my developers, send them all the information. My developers were like, look, we don't have anything on our server, there's no transcript, sorry. And so I actually avoided a trap because they asked me if I had something stored on my servers about their conversations, and I didn't, and they're like, we're kind of relieved to know that. I'm like, oh shit, I almost got fucked, but it's a good thing. So we don't store transcripts on our servers, only on your smartphone.
Is it a service that you might want to consider as like an extra service? So, because what I'm getting from the gentleman over there is that maybe there is a value in being able to store personally that conversation. If I'm the user of your app, the other question, the other idea that stems from the lady's question is, if taking your application into her company, one needs to be wary about the security. What's being stored and where does it get stored? Because in a certain company, they always are sont frileux of what gets circulated. Now that's the question. So you're saying you automatically erase the discussions, or you have the ability to store it and send it to the end user? And just to say about the legality of it, I'm not a legal expert, but I know that emails are accepted, but not necessarily legally binding. But they're accepted in at least the French courts as potential arguments.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
First of all, thanks for coming to speak with us. What you've done is quite amazing. I was wondering if you could speak a bit about your future plans and what you have next.
So he wants to know about, so he first of all applauds you, as everyone here does, for what you have done. And he would like to better understand your future plans. What is next for you? What are you going to do?
Oh, I want to make $1 million. By next month, and then we'll see as it goes on. Maybe $1 billion would be cool. Actually, the interesting thing is a lot of people ask me, oh, no, you have a social app, it's very nice, humanitarian thing. I was actually on BFM TV 2 weeks ago with the CEO of Orange in front of me, and we had an interview on BFM TV, and he was like, oh, yes, Olivier is the former employee of ours on SMH, which is a program, which is bullshit, by the way, it's not true. But he wasn't going to say on TV that, employees leave to actually do innovative stuff that Orange can't do. And he was like, oh, it's nice that you're doing a humanitarian app and everything. And this kind of annoys me because, you know what, you can look at Facebook and say that's a humanitarian app too. People get connected. You get alerts when there's an earthquake, and but so we actually have a business model behind what we do, and we want to go beyond just like my first immediate focus is I want to be able to call my family, friends, co-workers, stuff like this. That's my first focus. Beyond that, it's like we need to add layers of cognitive intelligence to the conversation, in the sense that. The other day I was calling my dad, he was driving, and but I didn't know that. And the transcription is awful, and it's like, oh, man, this still sucks, I really hate it. And then my girlfriend sitting next to me, she was like, what's wrong? I was like, oh, it doesn't work. Like, well, obviously he was in a car. It was windy, there's noise. I didn't know that. For her it was obvious. My dad didn't think to tell me, but the transcription was not working. So you have to add a layer where you filter speech and you tell the deaf person, oh, this is too noisy. Call back later, or tell the person to be in a quiet place. And also, if somebody's like, I have something to tell you. Well, I have something to tell you. Two very different contexts, but I can't tell. All I can do is read something that says, I have something to tell you. And so those are like expressive things, context to add to the conversation. Also, there's, There's also interesting possibilities in terms of like you know, call centers. And I'm throwing that out there. I wish somebody was going to develop this too, but I could be doing this. Call centers receive enormous amounts of call data. And the simple fact of like making these calls tangible means that there's data behind those calls, and you can actually like measure months of performance and be like, okay, those keywords convert into a sale and a happy customer. Those keywords are not good, don't use these, or stuff like this, and sentiment analysis and stuff like this. And that would be interesting to explore. And I'm sure that companies are already working on this. I know somebody doing that. There's so much to do with transcriptions of phone calls. Without going into a legal mess, you can tell people this call is being transcribed. There's possibilities there too.
We have time for one or two more questions.
I have, so basically, there's something interesting in that we have an entrepreneurship forum at INSEAD, and a lot of you are international students. And I wonder how many of you are going to stay in France to launch a startup. And great, we have one too. Good. Cool. Yes, go for it. Because basically there's so much, really, again, I can't overemphasize how much talent there is in this country. And you have a good quality of life. And to go to like places like Sofia and Antipolis, that are just like begging for entrepreneurs to come and use the offices, which are all empty. There's a lot of stuff to do here. And a lot of investment is coming in from America, actually, to France. There's actually American startups that are outsourcing the labor in Europe, not just France. Yeah. I'd be happy to exchange with you on this subject.
I generally really do not tend to use these words like inspirational and stuff like this. I really normally stay away from these words. I will say every time we interact, I see what you do, I'm deeply moved. It's incredibly energizing. The way I often kind of define leaders, and I stole this idea from someone else, whether I feel more energetic after interacting with someone than I do before. I can hardly think of anyone who kind of gives me more energy. I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone, and please join me with another standing ovation for Olivier.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I now have the great pleasure. So Olivier has done something fantastic, that he's not just talked about his own startup, but that he very actively encourages other startups. What we try at INSEAD, obviously, to do is to try to improve the ecosystem. Olivier has just pointed out maybe there's already a fantastic ecosystem around us, but we're actually continuously engaging in even further improving this. So I would like to, so now we're going to present one of the measures we're actually taking to further improve the entrepreneurial ecosystem at INSEAD.